It's week 13 of the NFL season, and the Commanders have officially entered must-win mode. What the hell has happened? Step into my office. Welcome into Denton's office, your favorite Commanders YouTube show. I don't got much, but I do have a microphone, and I certainly have a whiteboard. And only important people have whiteboards. A couple weeks ago, I got on here in this very office, and I said the Commanders could win 13 games. And I mapped out the path to them winning 13 games. I didn't think that was a hot take. I don't consider myself to be a hot take artist. I thought it was honest. I thought it could happen. And boy, swing and a miss for old Four Eyes over here. Left hand up. I'll take a little bit of the blame. I made that video. They haven't won since. That's a 3-game losing streak for the Commanders. I'm seeing Vietnam flashbacks of Jim Zorn and Dan Quinn. Did a little bit of research. His first year in Atlanta went very similar to that. They started 6-1. They finished 8-8, which means there's a lot of pressure this weekend against Tennessee. You have to get things right against Tennessee. Will Levis is entering this weekend at quarterback for the Titans. I don't know if you've watched Will Levis, but you've seen him if you've been on the internet. He has been a meme factory for the Tennessee Titans, finding and creating ways to turn the football over and then look hilarious, not to him, but to us, hilarious in the process. I would feel good about that, but I kind of thought the same thing about Cooper Rush. Then he looked like just a redheaded version of Daniel Jones when Daniel Jones was torching old Riverboat Ron's ass for all those years. Defensively, they need to step up. They have to be better. Tony Pollard's coming in. He's having a good season in Tennessee. It didn't even matter if he wasn't having a good season. No one on Dallas was having a great year running the ball. They came in here. It was death by 1,000 5-6-yard runs. There were no home runs, which was great. I mean, congratulations. But they could not stop them. They could not stop the Dallas Cowboys, who had sucked at running the football this entire season. Whatever kind of mojo was here in this organization at 7-2 has just completely disapparated. And the sky is not falling on the Commanders officially. But if you look up, hot damn, those clouds are getting closer, right? Things are not going well. There needs to be some sort of adjustment. We can talk about the defense and how it failed. We can talk about the kicking situation and how it failed and what is going on there. Seibert's now on IR. He's just regular Austin. He lost the title automatic Austin because this weekend was a disaster. He's just regular Austin. He's now on IR, which leads me to question, was he hurt before Sunday still? Was he not fully healthy? Did he get hurt on Sunday? They have not answered those questions as of the point of recording, but it's certainly not good. I could ask 1,001 questions about where Daron Payne has been. I don't think we've had a legit Daron Payne game since week 2 of last year against the Denver Broncos, when he had that series at the end of the half, or rather at the beginning of the second half, where he just dominated. It was 3 plays, 3 and out, all because of Daron Payne. We have not seen that version of him since then. That's been over a calendar year. I would have sure thought that against a Dallas team that stunk up front because they had nothing but backups in. Backups blocking your best player on defense if you're looking at budget. And he did nothing. It was brutal. It was brutal. And then there's the offense. Cliff Kingsbury said last week, when asked about the Cliff dip, I don't know what that is. I would need to see some numbers as to what you were talking about when asked about his offenses taking a little bit of a dive in the second half of the season. That's not just at Arizona. You could look at those numbers at Texas Tech as well and find some sort of correlation. Is that a fair correlation with the Texas Tech stuff? No is the answer to that question. It's completely different football than what's going on in the NFL. You might even argue that the Arizona stuff isn't fully fair because his job was head coach. He was calling plays, yes, but his job was head coach. However, saying that on a Thursday and then proceeding offensively to put up 3.5 points on the Sunday 3 days later, it's a bad look. It's a bad look. Is it all Cliff's fault? No. Guys are showing up to the game with Walmart hands, not catching anything. All the drops. Noah Brown is dropping things. Even Austin Eckler was dropping things. Like everybody was dropping things. It makes Jaden Daniels' life very, very difficult if he is throwing the ball to you and you are then dropping the football. But here's the main thing about the offense. It's not the drops that should be concerning you. It is the use of the best player that should be concerning you. Look at this number right here. Terry McLaurin is 37th in target share. Yet somehow he's 4th in yards. I am not a math major. I know less about football than Cliff Kingsbury. That dude knows so much more than me. He has forgotten more than I will ever know. And I'm humble enough to admit that. However, I can use basic logic. If he's 4th in yards, but not getting the ball enough, I would simply attempt to give him the ball more. And then he would skyrocket up this number potentially, but then offensively, your success would also skyrocket. It feels like as fans, we have been trapped in a cycle. This goes all the way back to Scott Turner. Maybe you want to go all the way back further than that. But I use Scott Turner as an example because that was post Sean McVay in Los Angeles. Sean McVay in Los Angeles showcased that motion and creativity is really the next phase in the NFL. I'm not saying McVay was the first one to use the concept of motion, but those teams with Los Angeles in the early years really opened things up, similar to like how Kyle Shanahan did. Like it is that tree, right? It's that tree. We've seen the graphic, not going down that road. But I can look back to Scott Turner because what was happening in Washington was you were watching the guy that you let go somewhere else have success doing these creative things. So you bring Scott Turner in, Ron did, and you're like, well, he's going to be creative. All right, we're going to use some motion. We're going to, bunch some things up. We're going to create space. And he did it for like a game against Jacksonville with Carson Wentz once. And then we never saw that stuff again. And then Bieniemy comes in here, and Bieniemy won a championship with Kansas City. So certainly he is going to be on top of all of the latest and greatest trends in this coaching game. All the motion, all the creating of the space, and it sucked. It was somehow even worse than Scott Turner. There was no motion. There was no created space. Sam Howell's getting sacked 1,001 times. And then Cliff comes in here. And Cliff, to his credit, didn't promise all of these motions and all of this creativity, but that was kind of the thought process. All right, you were at USC with Lincoln Riley. You come from a college background where that's a little more prevalent because you're helping the quarterback out who maybe can't process as well as quarterbacks do at the NFL level. We're expecting creativity, and at least with one particular guy who happens to be the best guy on the field, that has not been the result. And I put this number here. Terry McLaurin has run 27 routes, 27 plays at right wide receiver. He's been thrown to 8 times. He's caught 7 of them for 149 yards and 2 touchdowns. I would do that more. Instead of burying him on the left side of the field, utilize him. Move him around. Make the defenses work. They're already going to key on Terry McLaurin. That is obvious. He is a true number 1 wide receiver. He is proving it with a good quarterback. And you look at the rest of the roster, and there isn't a true number 2. I like Noah Brown. He's a 3A. And if you want to point to anybody else, go for it. Maybe they could make Luke McCaffrey into a wide receiver number 2. But in order to do that, you have to throw him the football, which they don't do. Or put him on the field, which they also don't seem to do a ton. But if Terry is having success on the right side of the field, put him on the right side of the field. This doesn't have to be a convoluted equation. If he's good at a certain spot, put him in that spot. Utilize a little bit of motion. Make Jaden's life easier. If they lose to Tennessee and they drop to 7-6, the sky is falling. They have to understand that. And you can give us as the media the cliches about, adversity and all these things. We're just battling through it. We're a young team. All of that is fine and dandy when you're talking in front of a microphone, but the results have to be different. The results have to be different. You can tell us everything is fine, but then when you score 3 points against a Dallas team that you should be stomping their face in, there's reason to be concerned. And Tennessee's defense is better than Dallas's was. At least better than what Dallas's was before the game this weekend. They look pretty good this weekend. There's no denying that. But Tennessee's defense is better. They're coming off a big upset over Houston. Now, Houston has been a little bit of a disappointment relative to expectations. But if you're a gambler, you also hope that that was Tennessee's big win. They kind of fall back down to earth this upcoming weekend against the Commanders. But you have to take into consideration this is not going to be a cakewalk anymore. That's 7-2 guaranteed for the playoffs, fighting for the NFC East. I mean, you have people in this market talking about potentially getting a bye, competing with Detroit, and they've lost 3 in a row since. The Pittsburgh one, understandable. Didn't love it. Should have won that one. The Philadelphia one, borderline expected. That team's playing really well. This weekend sucked. That was a bad football game. And if you put that together with a string of another bad loss against Tennessee, because make one thing clear, there is no reality in where losing to Tennessee is going to be considered a good loss. If you lose to the Titans, that's a bad loss. And that's your second bad loss in a row, fourth bad loss total this year, fourth loss in a row total this year, rather. That becomes a trend, and that's why these two names are written next to one another on the whiteboard. Because you start to get the flashbacks of the coach that started 6-2 and finished 8-8, or of the coach in Atlanta that started 6-1 and finished 8-8. Cannot happen. That cannot happen. You have to beat Tennessee this weekend. It is must-win territory for Washington against Tennessee. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheDentonDay. I appreciate you coming into my office. Now, respectfully, get out.